Hi, everyone. Today, I'm thrilled to meet with Steve Mendel. Steve is the CEO and co-founder of Bought by Many, an InsurTech startup very well known in the UK market. I'm sure you have seen those great ads on TV with this beautiful lady and a pet. Bought by Many is making the world a better place for the pet parents through its tech-enabled insurance. The pet insurance was launched in 2017. Bought by Many was set up 9 years ago between Steve and Guy, the two co-founders of the business. Bought by Many was named Pet Insurance Provider of the Year in 2021 and has won multiple awards for its product and from Insurance Choice Awards. So let's hear a little bit more about Steve, why he set up Bought by Many, and his background within insurance. So hi, Steven.
Sabine, lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm very well. It is a pleasure to have you today.
The pleasure is all mine, as always.
Thank you. And, all the viewers who are going to view or listen to this podcast, I hope, will learn so much and get so excited about insurance and how innovation comes into our space every day.
I hope that's true. I hope that we can inspire just a few people to be excited about insurance in the way that you and I are.
So I would like to start, this little discussion about talking about who you are, Stephen. Okay. What got you into insurance in the first place?
Okay, so I have a slightly sad answer to that question, in the sense of that insurance started for me a very long time ago. I'm a qualified actuary. I studied maths at university, like many actuaries, and I went straight into being an actuary at the age of 21 when I left my undergraduate studies and qualified as an actuary about 3 or 4 years later than that. And I've been working in finance ever since, but not in insurance. So my first few years as an actuary was spent in the pension space. And then after that, I transferred and set up. In fact, the first startup I was involved with was a startup in the investment consulting space in the middle of the 90s. And from there, I became a management consultant. And then went on to do the second and third and fourth startups, all in the finance space, but none of them to do with insurance, or none of them directly to do with insurance.
So how long have you been working with, how long have you been working? How long have you been, hustling between industries?
Oh, okay. So you mean, how old am I? Is that your question? Is that
really what you how old are you? No. How long have you been working?
So I started work. I left university in 1988 and set up Bought by Many in September 2012. So amazingly for me, 9 years ago. Yeah. And initially we were working in a very significant a very broad range of insurance categories. And I'm sure we can talk a bit more about it, but we, over several years, narrowed that down so that eventually we're now only in and around the pet space.
Yes, I remember when I met you for the first time, probably 6 years ago. Okay. I remember there were a lot of different product offerings. And gradually, I also remember enjoying watching the Bought by Many advertisement on TV, which became very pet focused.
Yes. Correct. And the one with Sooty and Sweep, is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah.
Where we did. So there's a really lovely story behind that. So we decided it was time to have our first TV advert. We'd done nothing on television beforehand. And it was at the very beginning of direct to household digital advertising. And we were able to work with the Ridley Scott production studio to create something genuinely different in the TV advertising space. If you remember it well, it was recorded in 4:3 aspect ratio. It was designed to look like a 1970s children's TV program, hence the reference to Sooty and particularly to Sweep. And it was quite quirky. I think this is a good way to describe it.
So one thing I would love for you to share with our listener is what got you into insurance technology, which we call InsurTech in the first place?
Yeah. So it is an excellent question and actually really quite important in the kind of original history of Bought by Many. So for many, many years, I have been very troubled by the way that large corporates treat individuals, and the poor way in which they are treated. In contrast to the fact, and in particular in financial services, in contrast to that, they treat other corporates very, very well. So there were, and still are, many examples of where that's true. So in the unit trust space, the pricing structure or the fee structure for an institutional investor is a tiny fraction of the rate at which retail investors are charged at. And some of that is explained by admin, of course, that's definitely true, but definitely not all of it. Other examples, in the life assurance space, a group life policy looks fundamentally differently priced from an individual term life. Mm-hmm. And lending and mortgages. There's just like an enormous number of examples where individuals are just not treated in a comparable way to the way in which corporates are treated. And so my own personal exposure to that happened as I was leaving my last corporate job. I had built and created a wealth management business for Close Brothers, the merchant bank. And I was getting ready to move on. That was my fourth entrepreneurial effort, if you like, or intrapreneurial effort, I think is what it's now referred to. And I was ready to go and to go do the next thing. I was a good leaver. And as a good leaver, I was given access to the good leaver helpline of the healthcare provider that Close had used for all its stuff. I knew how much the healthcare had cost Close because it was on my P11D. I paid the tax benefit on it. And so I rang up the healthcare provider and said to them, next week I'm leaving. I want to take over the policy, but I'll be paying for it myself directly. And they said to me, what cover level do you want? And I said, well, I want exactly the same thing that I've got already. We are exactly the same family. Nothing changes, just the source of funds will be mine rather than from Close. And I knew how much it cost Close because, as I told you, it was on my P11D. And I was expecting it to be more than that, but I was just not prepared for it to be 4 times the price, almost precisely 4 times the price. And that for me was really the kind of ultimate indicator that I had to go do something to redress the balance between corporates and individuals in financial services.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you are saying comes across a lot of other, I would say B2C InsurTechs, where they want to change that customer engagement and take away friction from the process, but also make it more affordable to drive that financial resilience. So tell us, who is Bought by Many?
Who is Bought by Many? So Guy and I set up Bought by Many. I mean, hilariously, when I tell you this now, I mean, I did it from my kitchen downstairs, and Guy did it from a shed at the back of his garden. And we still have the original sheet of paper where we were brainstorming the name of the company. He was looking at available URLs. My wife and I were kind of trying to come up with the idea that was behind Bought by Many. And this was about creating communities of individuals who had similar but niche insurance needs. And hopefully from that, you can understand the connectivity to helping individuals to be treated better. We were trying to bring together individuals in a similar space. Examples, one of which, of course, is still true, pet insurance for Labrador owners, but also travel insurance for diabetics and professional indemnity insurance for landscape gardeners and personal accident insurance for commuting cyclists, and to help these communities to get access to better insurance. And we defined better on 3 dimensions: better price, better product, and better customer experience. And that's what we set out to do, amazingly, 9 years ago, as I was saying, at the end of 2012.
One thing I love doing, and I hope you don't mind, is when I am on stage and I talk about Bought by Many, I often used to talk about the fact that you would go on social media to find your customer segments. And the example I would use is, well, imagine if you would want to insure a Siamese pink cat. Well, Bought by Many can do it because you are able to really understand your customer need and shape the product around it. Am I right?
So that absolutely, Sabine, was very much the intention. So the idea was to build these communities using search and social tools, as you describe, and then to create this kind of 3 dimensions of better. Now, we now recognize the language of what we were, although that didn't really exist at the time, as being a digital broker. And therefore, we had to work with the incumbent industry to create this product that was of these 3 dimensions of better. And we could always get better price. There was never any debate about it. Insurers loved the targeted risk segments that we could bring them, and therefore they were able to reflect that in better pricing. Some insurers were able to do better product, to tailor the product to the specific needs of the segment. Not many, but some could. Absolutely none could do anything about improving the experience, making the experience more relevant, more tailored, more specific to those communities. And so we really felt that we had set out to achieve something that was never going to get achieved unless we did something differently.
I know you have one of the highest NPS scores out there in the insurance, I would say in the insurance sector. Yeah. And this, I assume, is because of your unique customer experience and the journeys you've built for those customer users. How do you call them actually as well?
Yeah, so I mean, firstly, thank you very much. I mean, we are genuinely delighted that we have been able to delight so many customers. So you're right. Our Net Promoter Score is important. We think about members, the people, people who choose to join our organization as customers, and our Net Promoter Score has never been below 70. In fact, last week, our overall Net Promoter Score was 80, and that's across all customer touchpoints, claims, new customers, midterm adjustments, complaints, everything. And the subset of that, by the way, that's just claims was even higher, was 84 last week. And this was born out of our recognition that we couldn't change the insurance experience from the outside. It just wasn't possible. We had to do something that was fundamentally different to enable us to be in a position of doing something different. And so over the course of a number of changes over 2015 and 2016, we went from being this digital broker, if you like, to being an insurance provider. And we spent a lot of time with the members of our communities who are in and around the pet space, 120,000 of them, as it turns out, to really understand what they thought of the insurance industry and how they would have made it better themselves. So we surveyed all of them with a very simple question of if they could design their own perfect pet insurance policy, what would it look like? And amazingly, we got 40,000 responses. Off the back of that, we created 7 brand new to market products, and we announced those to the marketplace in September of 2016. Instead of going live then, we took the opportunity to completely reimagine every aspect of the insurance journey, the customer journey, so that when we did launch in February 2017, there was nothing about the customer's life journey, the customer's experience that bore any relation to anything else that they would have seen in the pet space anywhere.
That is superb. That reminds me, I hope you don't mind me sharing that story at Christmas last year. And I mentioned that story to you before. One of my best friend, cat, got really sick, and she was calling veterinarian offices, and no one wanted to see her. It was literally on Christmas Day. And then she calls me around midday. She said, you know what? I'm not sure I will come to dinner to see you, Sabine. And we were having our own bubble, our own COVID bubble, because I need to sort out my cat. And so I said to her, do you know Bought by Many? Do you have an insurance with Bought by Many? She said, well, no, I don't know them. And I said, well, maybe you should check them out. She did. Within, I think, 10 to 15 minutes, she had insurance. And what she was able to do is go through your teleconsultation service. That was change making. Within an hour, she was seeing a veterinarian, a doctor for the cat, and she was able to make it to dinner a bit late, 8:00 on that day. But the cat was fine. He got the prescription medicine. She went back home. She slept, and she was able to go home around midnight that night. So you save somebody's life in some ways on Christmas Day.
Very happy to hear that.
She has been very, very happy with the service, because I want to know. So I ask the questions too.
Good. I want to know too. So I'm very happy. And you've told me this story before, but I'm hoping that she's still very happy. Good. And critically, the beauty of that of her experience, but the experience of many thousands like her, is that unlike many other more traditional, more Me Too insurance offerings, people do really ask who insures your pet. No one would dream of asking who insures your car or who looks after your house, right? But pet owners do talk. What pet food do you use? Which vet do you go to? Who's your insurance provider? And therefore, having members of ours who are our advocates in the marketplace, who are very happy to be our walking, talking television adverts, if you like, is really important for us. And this has fantastic knock-on economic benefits, of course.
So now I will ask you a question around bought by many, the unicorn, 2 billion, over 2 billion valuation. How does it feel like? How long did it take you to get there? But how does it feel like?
So as I said, we started in September 2012, and technically we became, as you say, a double unicorn in June of this year. So what's that, like 8 3/4 years? Honestly, in truth, and this is not a very helpful answer, I really can't get excited about the valuation at all. It does not in any way change the business, the people that we want to recruit, our existing staff, our customer base, our focus on our customer base, and our focus on the pets and their parents. It's an important milestone. Of course, I'm definitely not denying that. And the many investors who have supported us over the last few years, for them, it's fantastic. But I can tell you that it has not changed us as a business one single piece. We talk about it almost never. And it's, for us, just an external measure. When people congratulate me on becoming a unicorn or on a fundraise or something like this, my standard response is, please don't congratulate me on that. Please congratulate me on a fantastic net promoter score, or please congratulate me on new innovation in the product offering, or please congratulate me on a launch in a new country. These are hard things that we work and plan for. I always tell our team, focus on the multiple, not the multiplier. So we are focusing on serving as many pet owners around the world as we possibly can. And if the market's like this, they'll value us highly. We have much less control over the latter part. We have enormous control over the first part.
This takes me to an important question, which is culture, mindset, and people and leadership. You have brought within your team amazing people. How has it been to build a high-performing team, Steven? Because this is in some way the reason why, Bought by Many is where it is today.
Yes, 100%.
It's people.
Completely, 100%. And we are a very values and culture-driven business. The 5 values of our business underlie everything that we do. They were created. We actually had 8 originally. People couldn't even remember how many there were, let alone what they were. And so over 4 years ago, we put a group together from across the business to distill the values down into a more meaningful, smaller, more easily rememberable list. Mm-hmm. And they underlie everything that we do. We recruit against them, we reward against them, we assess against them, we run commercial negotiations with third parties against them. It is a very fundamental part of who we are. And it's very interesting to me that when people say, well, I don't quite like that word. And I say, I'm afraid it's not for you to change. And that helps us. It's been our guiding light, if you like, when it comes to recruitment, which is the piece you talk about. And recruitment is for us absolutely critical. We spend a lot of time and energy trying to find the people for whom we represent a good cultural fit. It is very important for us to find a range of people who represent our range of customers. So as I think you know, we put an enormous amount of energy into a broad staff base that represents the customer base. Yeah. And when we are looking for roles, we absolutely don't take the easy route. We'd much prefer to have an empty space, an empty, unfilled role, than to recruit the wrong person.
Very important, right? You actually mentioned recruitment, but also representation of your customer base. And I think I would really like if you could spend a little bit of time on that, because I am, Black female, and, I don't have a cat, but, my friend has a cat. Yeah. And the key thing, we often talk about ethics in business and representation of our customer. Yeah. And this is key to create a growth business today.
Correct. Absolutely. And I don't think it's possible to put yourself in somebody else's shoes until you have traveled their journey. And clearly it's not possible to travel everyone's journey. It's just genuinely, there just isn't enough time in the world to be able to do that. So you need to bring together people who represent multiple different journeys, multiple different aspects of life, so that we have in our leadership team and across the whole of our business, a very, very, very wide range of individuals who come from multiple different backgrounds. And that helps to really inform our decision making, but it really helps us to understand better consumer decision making as well. And really, I would say that the most important part of our role is not to find the person who would do the job in this box the best, but it's the person who takes us as a business the furthest. And that's a much broader definition of finding the right candidates.
Interesting. I want to go into a bit of trend, and I want to play a little game with you. I'm going to give you 3 words.
I'm very competitive, so let me just warn you about that up front.
Give you 3 words. I would like you to tell me what that tells you as a word, and then I would love for you to tell me what that means for you in terms of changes in the marketplace.
Okay, sure.
So my first word for you is sustainability.
Okay, so sustainability is about, for me, the word means that what we're doing has longevity to it, and positive longevity, not negative longevity. Sustainability is often thought about, I think, in the marketplace as being something about maintaining the status quo. I think that on many dimensions, the world is in a poor status quo. So for me, I don't think sustainability is about maintaining that, but about improving things. And the relevance of that for us, which I think is the second part of your question, is that we are very focused on understanding and addressing the carbon footprint of pets across the world. It's a contentious subject because no one really understands it properly yet, but we are very invested in solving the understanding point first, and then being able to address it. And until we really understand it, it's not possible for us to address it. So we're very engaged in this right now. This is the first time that anyone's asked me this, by the way.
It's interesting how you are addressing that point, like my first word, because a lot of organizations I'm talking to tend to ask me about ESG. Yes. Environmental, social, and governance metrics, and how they align their strategy against that. And the counter response, as you said, is the carbon footprint. However, it needs to be linked to whatever strategy products you are actually positioning. And yes, a lot of companies are focusing on a status quo rather than making big changes. what I do see, though, is probably more interest to affect what that means in terms of operational change. How do I change my processes even a little? Now we are able to work from home. We don't need all those big offices. Potentially, we can walk more rather than using our cars. But then you also have the impact around how the product and services are going to be designed. And I assume, Steven, you're also looking at, based on what you said with the pet and the carbon footprint of the pet, how you are going to evolve your product suite, I assume.
Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. And how we're going to evolve our advice to pet parents, to people like your friend, to be more responsible pet owners.
Yeah. Second one is like a hot word at the moment, or hot 2 words, embedded insurance. What does that mean for you?
So embedded insurance, it's an interesting question. So embedded insurance, I think of as insurance that is inherent in something else that you're doing. So that the main agenda is not the insurance, but the insurance comes alongside whatever you're doing. And embedded insurance, I think, in the pet space, it has a problematic history. So for people who have bought pets in the past from breeders, often pets come with a free 4-week insurance policy. This is quite standard. And then a very hard sell at the end of the 4 weeks from the incumbent insurer to persuade the new pet parent to go from this 4 weeks of free cover to a paid policy. That's how I think about embedded insurance in our space. As an example, well, there are other examples, but this is one. And this is problematic for me for a number of reasons. The first is that to enable this policy to be free, it has to be slimmed down dramatically. So actually what pet owners are getting, many of them for the first time pet owners, they're ending up with an insurance policy that actually is not a proper full-fledged expansive policy, but it's a very small version of it. And so this is the first problem. The second is then the hard sell that happens at the end of the 4 weeks to persuade the new pet parent to upgrade their policy to a full policy and to pay for that. And the hard sell does not sit well with me. I do not think that this is the right way to address people who are struggling to learn how to live with their new pet. And who many of whom would have had heard a lot of horror stories about not having insurance. And so they'll feel obliged to say yes without actually having had the time to research and to ask for recommendations and to think about the right answer for them and themselves. So our response is that we really want pet parents to make the right decisions for themselves in advance of collecting the puppy. So that you've got time on your hands in the week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks beforehand. You have much less time on your hands afterwards because you're dealing with a new infant, right? It's a puppy or a kitten, but it's a very full-on experience. I mean, I don't know if you know, but we've taken a new puppy into our own household last week. And if I look tired and worn out, it's because I am tired and worn out, and not from work, but from putting up with the broken night's sleep with a baby, a very small black Labrador. And I think that it's a problem to embed insurance in our space. I don't want to talk more broadly. I know much less about that. And I think it's much more helpful to inform and to facilitate better decision making rather than to embed.
Yeah, it's a fair lens on things, which takes me to my last group of keyword, which would be artificial intelligence and behavioral science. How does that plays within your world?
Massively. So pet insurance is unusual on 2 dimensions. It's called a high frequency, low severity category. And I'll get rid of the jargon, having told you that's what it's referred to. So high frequency means that people claim often. In fact, 1 in 3 pets claims every year. And low severity means that the average claims cost is small. So people claim often, but for small amounts of money, unlike motor insurance, where people claim much less often, but for much larger amounts of money, for example. And the implication of that on claims administration is extreme. So if you are having, very dramatic, large numbers of claims to handle, you need to be able to do so efficiently and to spend the time on those claims that are more problematic. And so over a series of many months, we have automated the claims process for a significant proportion of our customer base, so that and you'll understand that I can't be specific about which ones happen straight through and which ones don't. But using tools like you describe, it has enabled us to automate 30% of our claims. So 30% of our claims right now are straight through, no human involvement whatsoever. And our agenda is to increase that to 70% within the next 6 months.
And so when you actually look at this, your ability to automate the claims process, are you able to do the same in the underwriting process? Is it also your intent? Everybody is talking about algorithmic underwriting today.
Yes.
Does that play in your world too, Steven?
Very much so. Very much. And the other beauty of scale and beauty of frequency of claims is that you can be much more specific about pricing structures, much more detailed, much more granular, much more flexible. And when you've got tech behind you, and actually it's amazing we haven't mentioned tech. We've been talking for nearly half an hour and we haven't talked about data and tech. With enough data and the right tech, your ability to iterate pricing structures very, very frequently is huge. And that enables you to price correctly, more precisely, more accurately than anybody else in the marketplace. And that's great for consumers because people pay the right price rather than a price that was historically determined or based on a kind of a more broad-based bucket of risks.
So let's look at tech. One question which comes to mind is data now the renewable energy of every business?
So I think what's interesting about that question is that the analogy to renewable energy doesn't talk about scale. And I think that data is about scale, but it's also about access and the ability to dig into that data and really properly analyze it, which makes the winners and separates them from the losers in all marketplaces. So I'm not sure. I'll divorce the connection to renewable energy, if you like, if you're okay with that. I try,
absolutely. I usually say data is the fuel, right, or the oil of the business, and people say, well, now we need to find a new statement to be.
Okay, fine. Well, I see it as it's the lifeblood of our business, and for me, it's a very quintessential part of how we think about the world. Everything that we do is data centric. It's born out of it drives our decision making on many different dimensions, and it defines our product rollout strategy, our expansion by geography, our expansion by type of customer, pricing structures, claims approaches. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where we would make a decision without it for any subject.
That's perfect. So, the reason why I want to do this, this for our listener is I'm trying to demystify the world of corporate venturing, which include two things: scouting for ventures and building new ventures like you've done, Steven, with your team and with Guy. So what does corporate venturing means for you, and how has that impacted your journey so far?
So we started, as I said, in 2012, and we were backed initially by a very bold, ambitious and generous angel at the very beginning, who has stuck with us throughout. And we have taken on, over the first few years, a few handfuls of angel investors who supported the early stage growth of our business. Once we had identified that pet was our direction of travel and that we wanted to do so at scale, the angel community was not going to be able to support that. And so we went to marketplace in the middle of 2016, just before we were ready to launch into the pet world, and set up to run our Series A. The world has changed a lot since then. At the time, it felt like a very ambitious move to raise £7.5 million. I know that now seems like a crazy small number. And Octopus led the charge. And we were very happy. They have been fantastic supporters of ours ever since October 2016, when they joined the board. Malcolm Ferguson, who has been on our board, is actually our longest standing external board member, represents Octopus. And it's been a delight. It's definitely been a delight. I can't say that he's always had an easy time with us, but finding the right venturing partner is critical to support the business, because I can be 100% sure that it won't always go well. Even for the most successful businesses, it won't always go well. And it is important for corporate venture partner to understand the ebbs and flows of a business, to understand the good times and be prepared for the bad times, and to support and enable the management to deal with both of those two extremes.
Yeah. Often when you look at the venture, the corporate venture side from a VC lens, it's often, about delivering the metrics, then being involved on the board, and also supporting the management team, partly when it is smart money. When you look at it from the corporate side of things, there's still a lot of learnings to be done. And I think the whole world of investing and building ventures and partnering ventures is going to evolve in the years to come. But still, I think it's about understanding the tension between financial return and strategic return, which means you need in insurance to support the business for the long term if you want it to succeed. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yes, I agree completely.
So what are your last few words for our listener, Stephen? What can they expect from Bought by Many? What are we going to see potentially in the future?
So I can tell you a few things. So firstly, outside the UK, we trade as ManyPets in Sweden and in the US. So I don't think it would be a shock for everyone to know that that's very much on the agenda for us to migrate to that name in the UK. So the first thing I can tell you that Bought by Many will become ManyPets over at some point over the next few months. We're in 3 countries. The 4th country is clearly our agenda next. Although before we decide where that is, we currently are live in 18 states in the US, and
I know.
We need
Congratulations as well. I mean, the market expansion, incredible.
We need to complete our rollout across the US. So we've got 32 or 33 technically more licenses to enact. And so that's a very keen focus for us. We're now amazingly 350 staff in those 3 geographies. And we've got some very big staff expansion plans as well as customer expansion plans. And we have also changed our overall aspiration, which I think is something that we haven't touched on, but it's worth noting in this section. So when we moved into the pet space and became exclusively focused in that space at the end of 2018, amazingly less than 3 years ago, we said that we would set out to become the world's leading pet insurer. On our current trajectory, we will achieve that within 2 years. And for most businesses, a 2-year time horizon is too short. You need to have a proper 5-year strategy and be continually iterating and working towards that. And so we have changed our overall aspiration, or more correctly, we've expanded it to become the world's leading pet health provider. And so we think about that as supporting pet parents more expansively than we have been able to in the past. To coming back to your friend, Televet is a great example of being more supportive of pet parents that isn't just about insurance.
Yeah.
And so examples of that in the US, we launched with a wellness cover that goes alongside insurance, and wellness is designed to enable pet parents to walk into a vet, and whatever the question, ManyPets would pick up the tab So for a regular checkup or a vaccination that would not be covered by traditional insurance, the wellness cover is designed to do that. So in the US, we've created these two pieces that interlink together. And you should expect us to be doing that more broadly, geographically over the coming years. And other capabilities that just enable us to become genuinely the world's leading pet health provider. A long way to go to get there. That's a proper 5-year aspiration for you. But we're very committed to it.
I'm so thrilled for you. So ManyPets, expansion in new markets. And what I found, again, very appealing is, that bloodline between insurance and other sectors. So we are hearing insurance, health, wellness, and who knows what will be next for Steven and the team.
Sabine, many, many thanks indeed. It's been a delight talking to you, and thank you for your very interesting and different questions.
My pleasure. Thank you for being with us today.
That's my
Steven.
pleasure.
If you like this podcast, subscribe now, share with your friends, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a 5-star review. Also, if you want to cover any specific subject with me, contact me on Instagram under Sabine VdL Officials or LinkedIn under Sabine Mendel. Thank you.